that was one of the first laws of the revolution, to create a private property in the countryside. You know? And in this moment, more or less, we have half of the land of Cuba in private hands. Do you think that socialism is to have half of the land in private hands? No, that's not socialism. It's a Cuban socialism, because we say that socialism is related with a lot of goals that our population has achieved. They have free school for all the children, but also it's free to go to the university. You don't have to pay for the university. All the education is free. That's socialism, according with the Cuban socialism. Medicine and all the medical cares are free. So that's also part of the socialism, our view of socialism. You know how much do you pay for your rent in the United States? Maybe you pay $2,000, $5,000, $3,000, who knows? You know I don't pay rent here? Because the house has been given to me and to all the Cuban people by the socialist company. You know? So socialism means that people has their own house, that people has their own car, that people has their own TV set, that people has their own refrigerator, that their children goes to school and also to university without paying, that you could go to a hospital and you don't have to pay for that, that you could be under surgery and you don't have to pay for that. You know? So that's socialism. That's Cuban socialism. It doesn't mean that you have to intervene everything. Okay, we have done that at the beginning of the revolution. And why we nationalized a lot of things at the beginning of the revolution? Well, I will tell you why. You know, the Cuban government started to buy some oil, crude oil, from the Soviet Union. And we asked Exxon and Texaco, which are the owners of the refinery here in Cuba, to process the crude oil and to make gasoline for us. They say no. But in the paper they signed to establish the refinery here in Cuba, it says that if the Cuban government owns some crude oil, you have to process it. So they doesn't want to process it, but it is signed by them. So we say, no, you have to process it. If you don't process it, we will take the refineries and we will process it. When we do that, when we did that, then the US government started to doing things against Cuba. They start like a blockade. The first step of the blockade was during Eisenhower, not during Kennedy. When we start all the nationalization, they start making steps and cutting oil, cutting food, cutting spare parts. Everything that goes to Cuba is blockade, because they want Cuba to say, please allow us to leave, give us something. But Cuba say, no, we are not going to do that, we're going to fight. And then any measure that has been taken by the US government, we take a measure here. If they take off our sugar quota, we nationalize all the sugar mills that were property of the United States. If they do something with our money outside, we nationalize all the banks inside. And that's the process of nationalization starts, and that's why it has been developed. Later, we start, and now we are creating private business. It means that some people want to open a cafeteria, some people want to open a repair shop, some people want to open something to give service to the people. We allow them to do that if they pay their taxes, like in other countries. There comes some investments from countries from Spain, they want to put an industry here in Cuba. We allow them to put an industry, and they establish the industry in Cuba. So now we have some private property in Cuba. But socialism for us means free school, free medicine, free houses, you know, and all the other advantages that the Cuban people has acquired during the Cuban Revolution.
You know, Professor, some people criticize the Cuban Revolution based on the reality that many Cubans have receive very small stipends at the end of the month. They say they should receive more stipends, more money. How do you respond to that?
I'm sorry?
How do you respond to the argument that many people who are workers in the Cuban society receive very small stipends versus a worker in a capitalist country that may receive a whole lot of money or stipend?
Yeah.
How do you respond to that kind of criticism?
You know, we have an economic problem here in Cuba. We have to sell economy, you know. We have to establish a different kind of salary for the people, because sometimes you earn more working in tourism than working in a school. But school is very important, and you have to earn more money in the school that does not provoke that you will go to tourism because you are a good teacher. So that's something we have to solve here. But also people think that going to out of Cuba, they will solve their economic problem. Maybe some of them will, but not all of them. What happened when the people that are living in Miami, with the Cubans that are living in Miami or out of Cuba, arrive to Cuba, they start telling, oh, I'm living like a millionaire in Miami, I have a car, I have this and that, you know, and they provoke in some other people the anxiety, the need to try to live like that one. But you know that that's not real. Most of the things that the people are saying they are figuring, and also they are saying that sometimes because their family live here and they could bring them some stuff, you know, that you could buy in the United States very easily and very cheap. And then you will take it to Cuba and the people say, oh, he has a lot of presents for everybody, he drinks. But first of all, how much is a beer is in the United States? For instance, a beer is how much? $2? In Cuba is $1. You know? How much is a full meal will be in the United States? $50? $15
to $20.
A little bit more, maybe 60. You know? I have been living in the United States. I know the United States. But here with $10 you could have a full meal. And then there's a difference in the economy. People think that when they arrive there, they will receive a much money, no? Enough money to have a very, very nice life. But to do that, you have to work very hard. You have to be a professional. You have to talk, speak English very well, and you have to also be in certain places that pays you a very high salary. Not everybody lives like that in the United States. We have been explaining that here in the university and also in my classes. I know that 42 million people in the United States are living below the poverty line. I know that more than 5 million children don't have enough food every day. I know about the homeless in the United States. So there's not such a paradise. There are things in there which are not such nice as they have been taught in Cuba, but people think that when they arrive there, they will solve the problem. And that's why they are traveling so many people to the United States.
What kind of influences have you seen so far, positively and negatively, or the influx of American citizens coming to Cuba?
Well, I will tell you something. Most of the Americans that came to Cuba, I think that came very nicely in a goodwill to be friendly you know, to discover what Cuba is, because they have been hearing about Cuba, so that now they want to know what Cuba is all about, you know. Some people say, oh, people in Cuba has no food. So when they came here, they start saying, looking that there are food in those groceries, in those markets, that you could buy food very easily everywhere. So they say, well, there is food here. Sometimes they say, oh, Cuban has no shoes, has no clothes. So when they arrive here, they say, but Cubans are very well dressed, you know, are very nice. Oh, they don't have soap, oh, but they don't smell bad, you know. You could notice that they have a bath every day, that they have soap, you know. There are problems in Cuba also. We have to solve the problems that we have in Cuba. But it's not the way that they show Cuba outside. The way that they talk to Cuba or about Cuba, out of Cuba, no, benefits Cuba. Because when people arrive to Cuba, when the U.S. people, the old citizens came to Cuba, they noticed that it's not true what they have been hearing about Cuba. And there is another truth. It's not a paradise. We have problems. We have to solve things. We are working on the economy to have a more productive industry, to have more food for the people, to have lower prices, you know. That we say, and that is real, you know, that we have to do things in the economy, you know, so Cuba will be better. But Cuba is not so bad as people show it outside Cuba, and of course it's not so nice as we want it to be. You know? We want it to be better. But every time people ask me, are problems in Cuba? I say, yes, there are problems in Cuba. There are problems in transportation. Don't you see the buses? How it goes? It's full of people, sometimes it doesn't pass in the right time, you know. There are problems sometimes with bread, there are problems sometimes with eggs, you know. We solve the problem, but we have problems. We have very high prices in some of the articles we're going to buy, like pork, rice, but that's a difference because Cubans receive an amount of food subsidized by the government. And then you could buy another amount out in the groceries, in the markets, you know. So we have to solve things. We have to improve the economy. We have to produce more. And in the way in which we produce more, prices will be lower. That's something that the government is working on in this moment. We are not the paradise. We have problems. We have to solve it.
Speaking of problems, Professor, can you give me your perspective on the history and the present status of race and race relations inside of Cuba? Outside of Cuba, the enemy often talk about Cuba and its racist attitude towards the Afro-Cuban citizens. Can you speak on that issue and that question from your perspective?
You know, for me, it's easier. Why? Because in Cuba, there was some kind of discrimination toward women. There was some kind of discrimination because of the race. And there was some kind of discrimination because of the social status of the people. I mean, before the revolution. That's what the revolution inherits. So the revolution tried to change that. It's not easy to change that because you have to change the mind of a lot of people. You have to change the point of view of a lot of people. And we have worked on that, and I think that we have arrived to some achievement on that. I told you that it was easy for me because I born in a very low economy neighborhood. In our neighborhood, nobody is looking if you are white or black or Chinese. Everybody was the same because we are poor people, and poor people does not discriminate because of the race of the other poor people. All of them are discriminated by the rich people, and that's one of the problems we had in Cuba. And when the revolution triumphed, we start working on that. First of all, it was a movement to improve the situation of the women. And now you could see women that are, we have been 50 years, more than 50 years of revolution. And now there are women that are engineers, that are heads of bodies. The head of this ICAP is a woman, you know. They are in the central committee of the party. They are also in charge of provinces, women. Also, we have to improve about race, you know, because if you walk in the streets here and you see a black man with a white woman or a black woman with a white man, nobody looks at them and nobody thinks that that's strange. There's something natural here in Cuba, you know? And the principal thing that we understand is that everybody has to have the same opportunity to study, to go to the doctor, to have a house. It doesn't matter which is your race, you know, and Cuba works on that. It doesn't mean that all the things are solved. It's like the economy. We have to continue working on that. I belong to UNEAC, the Union of Writers and Artists of Cuba, and we have a committee which is called it's a committee that works against discrimination in UNEAC. You know, we are working on that because sometimes in some places you find some discrimination because of the race or because of the sex or because other things. So this committee is against any kind of discrimination. And I know that the government is working also in that, and it's not solved. It's not solved because it still has some small places in which you have to arrange things. But in general, the president of the popular power, you know, he's a black man. There are people that are heads of the provinces that are Chinese, white, black, women. Nobody says, no, women cannot be the head of the province. No, women, okay, it could be the head of the province. They have the brain to do that. She could do that. Race is not also measured for that. Brains are measured for that. That's the idea of the Cuban Revolution. Not to classify people because of their sex or because of their race, but to classify the people according with their brains and to give all the people the opportunity to develop themselves. You know, before the revolution, most of the people that were in the university, who were there? They were rich people, white people, and mainly men. Now you could go to the Havana University and you will see any kind of people studying there. Black, white, Chinese, women, men, you know, most of them sons of workers, but now there are sons of doctors, sons of engineers that has been created by the revolution. But that's the way in which the revolution also gives some possibilities to any kind of people without sex discrimination, without race discrimination, or without any other kind of discrimination. I told you, we continue to work on that. Sometimes something happens and we have to solve it. But mainly, there is no, we cannot say that there is discrimination here in Cuba. That's my idea.
Professor, when we think about socialism, one of the things we look at is this question of trying to eliminate class exploitation. Looking at the kind of changes that are being made today in terms of allowing small individuals to play a role in the economy, have private